Hello. Okay, we're starting the Sicho tonight of, make sure I got the right sefer here. The Sicha of Parshas Vayekel, Mivarchim, Erev Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni, of the year Tavshin Lamed, 1970. And if I'm not mistaken, it's exactly the same setup as this year. Today's Chavches, so Rosh Chodesh is, I think, also Sunday. Hold on a second. Just to make sure, Rosh Chodesh this year is, the first day Rosh Chodesh is on Saturday, Motzei Shabbos Sunday. So it's the same setup. So the Rebbe says like this: Doiver kama kvar kama pa'amim. We've said many times, sheish zmanim sheim mitztarfim kama pratim. That we learned this recently. That sometimes you have a day that has many details in it. Well, the problem leirak in yonim pratim elegam yonim klolim v'ikrim. Not just sometimes fundamental things. Kibenidin didan. Like in our case, this Shabbos has many details. I think this is the way the last Fabringen started that we learned. That there's many things, like this week, it's Shabbos Vayekel, Parshas Shkalim, Shabbos Varchim, Erev Rosh Chodesh, right? So there's Rebbes like this. The Chol Reish, hey Ariel, the Chol Reish, Harizah Yom Shabbos. First thing is it's Shabbos. Shabai Korim B'Torah Parshas Vayekel. We read the Torah on the parsha of the portion of Vayekel. Api Torah Rabbeinu Hazaken, based on the teaching of the Alter Rebbe. Yesh Lilmoid Be Parshas Shavua Hara B'Chaim. One should learn from the parsha a lesson in life. So I mean, we know that we are supposed to live with the parsha. That's a teaching of the Alter Rebbe. Loirak B'Negei L'Chaim Ruchnim, not just to find insight in our spiritual, but Gam B'Negei L'Chaim Gashmim, also in our material. L'matim Asar Tfachim, in this space of where we're living. Means whenever we say L'matim Asar Tfachim, the idea is that in grounded. It's not something that's Hey Reb Shimon. We're just starting on page 250. So again, the Rebbe starts off the Fabrengen like I think we started even last week or a few weeks ago. That there's many components of the Shabbos, like exactly this year. It's Shabbos Vayekel, Shkalim, Mevarchim, Erev Rosh Chodesh. So the Rebbe says we're starting with the idea of Vayekel. Like the Alter Rebbe says, we have to live with the times. But notice of the Kach, on top of it being just Shabbos, I mean not just Shabbos, it's being like a Shabbos of any other week. This Shabbos is unique that it's Shabbos Parshas Shkalim. Shachol Tamid b'Shabbos Mevarchim or Chodesh Adar will always fall out either on Shabbos Mevarchim Adar. In a regular year, it would be Shvat going into Adar. In our year, it's Adar Rishon going into Adar Sheni. Or falls on Rosh Chodesh if Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos. That's one of the times where we would take out 3 Torahs. Not this year. Well, b'Shana Muberes, and in a leap year, b'Shabbos Mevarchim or Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni. It falls out on the Shabbos Mevarchim or Rosh Chodesh of the second Adar. Shabai Chol Purim, which that's the year Purim, that's the month that Purim falls out on, which is Adar Sheni. V'noisav was Ayesh Nagam Inin de Macha Chodesh. Like this year, we also have the Haftarah of Macha Chodesh. Now I believe Shimon Shrabi put it in his newsletter, but this week we have 3 Haftarahs. Those who are actually do Shnai Mikra and Chabad, the custom is, I think the Hira is from the Rebbe Rashab, that those who do Shnai Mikra Vecher Taga means they say the Torah twice with the Unkelos, and then you're supposed to prepare the Haftarah. So seemingly one would prepare the Haftarah that we're going to say in Shul. But Chabad's custom is that we review all the Haftarahs of the week. So in this week there'd be a Haftarah for Vayekel, Haftarah for Machar Chodesh, and a Haftarah for Parshas Shkalim. So I believe that we do Parshas Shkalim and we mention at the end of the Haftarah Machar Chodesh. Because I think Shkalim trumps Machar Chodesh, if I'm not mistaken, for sure. So he says like this: B'noisel zayesh nagamin de Machar Chodesh, tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh. V'chol inyanim elu mistafim yachad al pi kvius hachadashim v'ashanim kfi shenikva aidei elu shahayu semchim ishim pi ish ad Moshe Rabbeinu. And all this, the way it fell out, wasn't just by chance. It was organized by those who prepared the calendar, who were people that had smicha all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. She'elav namar, that to Moshe was given the power achodesh zelachem, that you guys are supposed to establish when the new month is. Kizeh ra v'kodesh. When you see it like this, then you sanctify the month. We know that also It doesn't just apply to that Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who decides when we establish what is the new moon, or is it today or yesterday or tomorrow? Or also, part of that was given the power to decide when to leap the year. Even and because everything is by divine, we can do a piskim and Baal Shem Tov, as the Baal Shem Tov teaches us, everything that a person hears or sees. You have to learn a lesson, not just a lesson stam, take an insight, and it's an interesting idea. But you should actually figure out a way to apply it to enhancing your love and fear of God. Not just about Torah things, but also about worldly things. Even more so about Torah mitzvahs. This is mamish. This opening of the Farbrengen is something we mamish learned a few weeks ago. So it's even more. The hashgacha is more even by when it comes to Torah things. And specifically something that's connected to the choice that God made in Yaakov and his sons, which is connected to the idea of Kiddush HaChodesh. K'maimer Medrash, like it's brought down, that Mishabachar Yaakov Uvanav, that when God chose, we're not going to go into what level this was because the whole creation was Yaakov Uvanav. But when God chose to Yaakov and his sons, meaning the Jewish people, he established the months of the year. And he gave it to Moshe. The Moshes and his Bezdin and the Bezdins afterwards will decide when to sanctify the new month and when do you have to leap the year. Hey Beth. Means aside from when God chose creation, before Matan Torah, they already had in the creation, there was already the sun and the moon, the two great luminaries. The Yomim Veshanim, that God set them up, that they're going to be the ones that guide mankind of when is day and when is night, and for when the months and years. We already had we learned this before, that Adam Rishon also had the idea of Kiddush HaChodesh. But the idea was specifically given to Yaakov and Banav once Matan Torah happened. Okay, so this again, I think. Sorry, Beth, I can put on pause. You coming over. All right. So, so again, the Rebbe says that when we have to look at the parsha in the week, we have to take an insight of what this teaches us in our Avodas Hashem. So last time the Rebbe started off the bringing like this, I think it was last week, and then we learned about Machzas HaShekel. Now we're going to learn about the Parshas Vayekel. Parshas Vayekel, Dover Pam, the Rebbe said, I spoke before. Because Nitfusu Advar, and it's already been published in the Likutei Sichos, it says, book 7. Oides inin de Vayekel, about the idea of Vayekel. She'ein ze rak tziruf shel yechidim. When we say Vayekel, that Moshe gathered, it's not just when you gather, you don't just gather, it's not a concept of gathering individuals. Yechidim is individuals. El mitzius chadasha means what's the Rebbe coming to eliminate? You could say sometimes, okay, let's get together. When you get together, so in theory we were separate, and now we're together, but now we're together, just a whole bunch of individuals. Instead of being one person, we're 5 people, or 10 people. So here he says, when you get together, especially a minyan, a new entity comes into existence. All of a sudden, the laws change, right? As soon as you have 10 people, it's not 10 individuals. Now you have a minyan. Now we could say Kaddish. We could say Kriya. Shal Kahal, we become a Kahal. We become a congregation. Aside from being just a member of the Jewish people, now we become a Kahal. The Rebbe says there's a difference between a Das Yisrael and Kahal Yisrael. And when Moshe accomplished in this gathering, is the Vayekel Moshe, that Moshe accomplishes that whatever this unity now becomes, which is to be able to start with the building of the Mishkan, was done through Moshe. B'lashon Rashi, hein esafim al pi diburei. Why did they gather based on the dibur, based on the announcement that Moshe gathered them? So it's not just that he gathered them, that they got an SMS, everyone gather. It's the Moshe, the power of Moshe gathered them to create them into the entity of a kahal. But Pratis Yoser, the Rebbe says now he's going to explain what does he mean. What does it mean that Moshe made them into the kahal? Vayekel Moshe. So the Rebbe says yesh kama dargis bekahal. There's different levels of a kahal, of a congregation. First of all, we have a Sarah Misrael, that when 10 Jews get together, it creates a minyan. Shinikraim Eida. We learn from the story of the Meraglim that Admosai La'eda Harazev, the pasuk is that we learned that Eida is 10, because Yeshua and Moshe and Kalev weren't counted. Ein Eida b'chusami esara. There's no Eida, which is a congregants that are less than 10. And then only can you say certain things of holiness in the prayer, like I said, Kaddish, Kriya, etc. Also, when not just when it comes to davening things, but also in actually Torah study things. We have already from Pirkei Avos says, the 10 people sit together and learn Torah. That's a gathering that creates also an entity of extra Kedusha. As the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, that's called Torah study in public. There's Torah studying alone. There's Torah studying in a chavrusa. There's Torah studying like us here amongst 5 people. And then you have that. Then you can't compare that to Torah study group of 10 people. Yikraim gam kahal. So that's also called the kahal of 10. Kamuvim b'divrei Gemara. How do we know it's called the kahal? The Gemara tells us when the gela alimud me'pasik b'parshas boy v'shachet oisei kol kahal das Yisrael ein ha'pesach nishchat ela b'gimel kitay shloishim b'nei adam. My time kahal v'das Yisrael kahal asara v'das asar v'Yisrael asara. So we learned that when it came, I don't know if there's ever such a scenario, but they had, because seemingly there would be more Jews, but they always did the Pesach in 3 groups, and each group couldn't be less than 30 people. I mean, that's only 90 people total, but 30 people is the minimum. Why? Because the Torah says, so should do Kahal Das Yisrael. So each word is coming to add 10. Kahal is 10, Adas is 10, and Yisrael is 10 as a group. So from here, the Rebbe is saying we see that a kahal is already 10. So already 10 is a kahal. The ma'ilm is so that's the minimum. The minimum of a kahal is 10. Then you have the ma'ilm is a shevet echad ikra kahal. Also, a shevet, one tribe, which is obviously more than 10 people, hopefully, is called a kahal. I believe the pasuk. There's a pasuk by. Okay, we'll see where his proof from that is. Vilo Ashlemus HaYoser doesn't say the proof of that. He says it's brought down in Psachim. That a shevet's called the Kahal. I think it has to do with Binyamin being born. Okay. Vilo Ashlemus HaYoser Naila B'Kahali. What is the most complete level of a Kahal? Vayekel Moshe's Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael. Not that we're gathering 10 people or a tribe, we're gathering all the Jewish people. Now Moshe took all the sub kahals of 10s and 30s and shvatim and made them into a single kahal. The total kahal is higher than 10, 100, also a complete number, 1,000, 10 times 10 times 10, 1,000. Or 10,000, and the highest number in Lashon HaKodesh is 10,000. Rivu is 10,000. We don't have higher than 10,000. Rabbi Yosef Aglili says that 10,000 Rivu is the highest number. Shnika Rivava, Meloshin Rav, a lot, plenty. Parshas Bracha v'kamam koimes. Okay, that Rivava, 10,000 is the highest number. That's 10,000 is a very large amount. And it says, "Sha'afa pisha dur she'ba'adam risha nichlal kol prati haneshamis mihem tluyim b'roisha mihem b'zroy mihem be'ikvay." He says, even though we know, I'm sorry, I wondering there was no connection. So Achi Yevshalim Naisai, sorry, page 252. And here, Moshe Rabbeinu says that it doesn't just include, the Rebbe says it doesn't just include that Moshe gathered all the Jewish people of the desert, but he gathered all the Jewish people of all times. Moshe gathered all the 600,000 general souls. We know that each soul has a sub-souls So the general souls were the souls that lived in the desert, and then they had every one of the souls that exist today come from one of the souls. If you're not a new soul, come from one of the souls that lived in the desert from 600,000 souls. We know the concept that one generation comes and one generation goes. That the idea is that the generations cycle, and that is because the generations are the souls come in and out of circulation. There's an idea that the same generation that lived last time is the same generation that lives this time. It's just recycled souls. I don't know if we go through so many times, but according to the opinion of the different Kabbalists. Okay. But nevertheless, all the souls the way they are as an entity. Moshe Rabbeinu took them and made them into one entity of the Jewish people when he gathered them to tell them about the Mishkan. Okay, so the Rebbe is saying that the Vayekel Moshe is not just that Moshe gathered a few people, not that Moshe gathered a large amount of people. He gathered all the people of all times. The only other time we could see that such a thing happened was by Matan Torah. And they go together because Matan Torah was when the Jewish people were there, they built a golden calf, and then a kapara for the golden calf was the Mishkan. So the Rebbe said like this: Okay, so what's now? But the Rebbe is going to analyze what does this gathering have to do in such a general gathering, in such a fundamental gathering, have to do with the Mishkan? What is the subject of the parsha? Is the Mishkan. And then the functionality of the Mishkan. As those who are the commentaries on the Chumash ask, it's a good question that Mefarshim ask. I mean, there's a lot of things that the Jewish people heard from Moshe. We never find the lashon, the expression saying them Vayekel Moshe, aside from the Mishkan. It means that there are other things times Moshe spoke to the Jewish people, but it doesn't say Vayekel Moshe. L'chura, the Rebbe says, seemingly one could answer. It could be that because they were about to start and embark on a very big mission of preparing for the Mishkan, and everyone was supposed to have jobs and everyone was supposed to participate, so in order that Moshe wanted to warn the idea of Shabbos, which he's going to mention Shabbos, so therefore he made sure that everyone was there, so everyone hears that Shabbos has to be kept, notwithstanding the preparations of the Mishkan. So the Rebbe is like this. The Chura actually, seemingly one could say, "Hey Rebecca, the Vayekel Moshe Kashir Azara Shabbos Shenisker B'Tichas Parsha." There could be that the idea of Vayekel is connected with the warning about Shabbos that's mentioned in the beginning of the Parsha. That says Sheishis Yamim, 6 days you should work. V'yem Ashri Shabbos Shabbos and Hashem. Ukdisa b'Medrash. The Medrash teaches us. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. God told Moshe, "Asay lecha." Then God told Moshe, make congregations, and that on Shabbos you should gather the congregations together, and they should learn the laws of Shabbos. The God told Moshe, you should start your the idea that we have a drush on Shabbos, whether people like it or not. Started all the way from Moshe Rabbeinu, and the Medrash says it was God's idea. So if anyone has any issues, put it in the suggestion box by God if you have an issue with the rabbi's speech. But the idea that there should be a divrei Torah on Shabbos is God told it to Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, "You gather the Jewish people and tell them about Shabbos. So from you, everyone should learn that on Shabbos the Jewish people should gather and learn Torah on Shabbos." The kivin should be because on the Yom Kippur, there was the atonement for the sin of the golden calf. Now we're getting closer to go to Yisrael. Then now we're going to have to start preoccupying ourselves when we go into Eretz Yisrael with the plowing, meaning being involved in the world, plowing, sowing the world. Right? The people are going to learn, they're going to be preoccupied in their business, he or she. And they, like it says, 29, it's brought down in the Gemara Brachas. So a person plows his field, a person plants his field. Torah matiyala, what's going to be with Torah? Therefore, the first thing after Yom Kippur, Well, now we're going to start preparing. We got atonement, and now we're going to move forward to go to Eretz Yisrael. Is Haya Inin Vayekel Moshe Kedei Laftiach As Inin L'Ilmei Torah. The first thing Moshe said is, let's everyone come together. We're having a shir. First thing is we're having a shir. Means the Jewish people are ready to run. He said, time out. We're having a shir. Moshe has to teach them that, but you have to make sure that you have Torah study all the time. That the generations afterwards should learn. That a person, the Shabbos is not just a day you sleep 24 hours because you work so hard during the week. Shabbos is time you get up early in the morning, you learn Torah. There's not enough of a reason to say that the reason why Vayekel Moshe is because now we're starting the Mishkan, now we're starting to move to Eretz Yisrael, and God wanted to make sure that people know they have to study Torah, and therefore he did a major gathering to start this gathering. If you just look at the simplicity of the story, you have to go to the simple story. That the main message was the Mishkan. It wasn't just about studying Torah on Shabbos. And seemingly, the Shabbos component of the message seems to be derech agav, a side thing. But you can't say the main parsha is about learning on Shabbos. The main, especially like the Rebbe always says that the name of the parsha tells us about the parsha. And the name of the parsha is Vayekel and talks about the Mishkan. Higdim l'zeh hazar Shabbos. So only that we preempt the warning of Shabbos, the Melechas Mishkan lo misheni derech Shabbos, just to teach us that people shouldn't prepare on Shabbos for the Mishkan. But the message of the parsha is the Mishkan. This is not the main place of Shabbos. And like it says also that the main place is in the Ten Commandments. And it's telling us that I already told you about this, which was in Mara. Mara is on the way to Har Sinai. ובפרט על פי המדובר כמה פעמים, ששם הפרשה כל ארכס חוסר פרשה לכל הפסוקים ועניינים של פרשה עד לסיומה. And like I just said, the Rebbe always says that we mentioned many times that the name of the parsha is about the message of the parsha, not just the first few verses of the parsha, and therefore the message of Vayekel is connected to the whole parsha, which is the Mishkan. Most of the parsha is not dealing with the laws of Shabbos, but dealing with the laws of the Mishkan. So therefore we're back at the question. We need to understand. Why was this super gathering that we don't find anywhere else? It means if you want to say it's about the Moshe right after the mountain came to teach the Jewish people, he made a general gathering to teach them about the concept of getting together on Shabbos and learning Torah is one thing. But if it's about a specific message of the Mishkan, there's other messages that the Jewish people were given from Moshe, and we don't find this idea of Vayekel. And especially that the Rebbe says that the Vayekel is to create the kahal. The word Vayekel means to gather, but also Vayekel to create the kahal of all the Jewish people of all times. So the idea is like this. The fact that Moshe gathered the people when, again, it was the morning after Yom Kippur. Moshe came down from the mountain for the third time with the second tablets, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, and he gathers all the Jewish people. Like it's brought down by Rashi. Yesh beis inyanim. There's two ideas over here. Michad Yis on the one side. Ein ze Yom Kippur ma'atzmai. This is not Yom Kippur. It's the day after Yom Kippur. Rak machar Yom Kippur. Avle Yidach Yis on the other side. Ein ze berichik zman Yom Kippur. It's not far from Yom Kippur. Means it's not Yom Kippur, but it's the morning after Yom Kippur. Al miyad l'machas Yom Kippur. So therefore, we have to say it's connected. It's an outcome of Yom Kippur. Right after Yom Kippur, we go to the story of Vayekel. And what happened on that year Yom Kippur, and happens every year, so to say, on Yom Kippur, is the atonement and forgiveness of the Jewish people, and specifically at that time for the sin of the golden calf. And he forgave them in a way, that he took joy in the Jewish people. It wasn't in a grudging way. Like it says, it's brought down many times that Moshe went 3 times, right? The first time Moshe went up, God was happy, he had Ratzah. The second time, it wasn't so happy. Moshe was pleading for the Jewish people. And the third time, again, Moshe was able to bring out with the Jewish people's avoda that it should be beratzin again and b'simcha. V'amr l'Moshe, and God told Moshe, Salachti kidvarecha, I forgive them like you asked. Kafi shiratzo bikush Moshe, like Moshe asked. Moshe didn't ask for a half forgiveness. Moshe wanted it to be the highest level of tshuva. Tshuva ilah, when Moshe said, when God said, "I forgive them," like you said, what does it mean? Like you said, what did Moshe say? Moshe wanted the highest level of tshuva, which is known as tshuva ilah, which the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya. And tshuva ilah is a super level of tshuva that even tzaddikim have to reach. Tshuva in the highest level of return of your end of your core. So much so that in the case of the people that have sinned, that their sins turn into mitzvahs. It's zchuyos. Means that you're able to transform a negative scenario in your life, that the negativity is not just forgiven, but the negativity ends up becoming positive. How could you turn something bad into good? That's such a level of tshuva that from the perspective of the bigger picture, so to say, the negative is not just a fuel to good, it ends up being good. And that's a tremendous level of tshuva. And Moshe was able to achieve that for the Jewish people at that moment. So what does it mean? The bottom line is that when Moshe gathered the Jewish people the next morning, we were the Jewish people holding. They were holding mamish pure, the highest level of purity, like before they ever sinned, because even their negative turned into positive. Like the famous in halacha, this is every year. We don't say Tachnun after Yom Kippur. Why? It's not a Yom Tif yet, because there's no time to sin. We came down pure from the mountain, right? Every year after Yom Kippur. And that was the most opportune time to tell the Jewish people about creating a Mishkan. Shinyane, what is a Mishkan? That God wants to rest amongst us. When's He want to rest the most? When's He want to be amongst us the most? Is when we're at our highest level. Like the beginning of creation, before the sin of the gold of the tree of knowledge. The world was created in a complete way. Like I said, I came to my garden. I came back to my original place. So standing there the morning after Yom Kippur was back to square one, back to the day of creation, so to say. And the Rebbe says actually it's greater day than the day of before the sin of the tree of knowledge. Because in the first day nothing happened. 5 minutes later there was a sin, but before that it was complete. It was perfect because nothing happened. But after Yom Kippur we already achieved tshuva. How do we achieve tshuva? Because after the sin of the golden calf, where it's a much stronger moment than the moment of we haven't yet done anything. The world went from being tzaddikim to a world of Baalei Tshuva. Then we were on a much higher level than tzaddikim. Righteous, the famous saying that where the righteous stand, where the Baal Tshuva stands, where the person who returns to God stands, the person who has to do tshuva, repentance stands. The most righteous person can stand there because the righteous person never sinned. The Baal Tshuva had to go through a journey in life. From this is understood. And therefore, we had to be like the beginning of creation. He's going to explain. What does that mean? You see what the Rebbe is getting at? The Rebbe says, what was the Gemara in Sanhedrin says? In law, it's actually interesting because the Rambam quotes the Mishnah in the laws of Sanhedrin, which are the laws we're learning now, those who learn 3 chapters a day, that there's a whole long Mishnah that goes into why a person has to the view of the view of the judge and the view of the witnesses, how they're supposed to view things. But the Mishnah goes into length, and the Rambam quotes the whole Mishnah and the whole story of Adam created Yachidi. The man is created alone. He quotes the Gemara Sanhedrin, page 37. Behind you. What does it mean a person was created alone? Man was created alone. Within Adam had all the components, all the souls, all the variety of person. Imagine Adam Rishon. Adam Rishon was created Yachid alone, but it wasn't like when every person was born come to the world a new personality. There's people that are called Neshamas Klalius that we know, and that applies to every nasi of the generation is a neshama klali. What's a neshama klali? Neshama klali means an inclusive soul. Yaakov was an inclusive soul for all the Jewish people. Moshe, the leader, the nasi of every generation is a neshama klalis. And neshama pratis says, I'm an individual. I'm my own person. I have a little personality. I have a tendencies to X, Y, and Z, and my vote is X, Y, and Z, and all that. But a neshama klalis, what is a neshama klalis? A neshama klalis is your general soul. In you in Adam had all the souls of people of all time. Adam had all the souls of people of all time, seemingly of Gentiles as well. So what does it mean that all the neshamas that are in Moshe, Adam? He had tons of a variety of personalities within him. So it says, so the Gemara says that Adam was created alone. Sha'alfa pishidu, even though it's known, like it says he brings it down from Sefer HaGilgulim, which is from the Arizal. Sheba'adam arisha nichlu kol prati neshamis, that Adam had within all the components of all the souls that would ever live. All humans that came out to being in the world were inclusive within Adam arisha. Mihem tluim b'roisha. There's some people that were part of Adam's head or higher parts of his body. Some people were in some of the souls are connected to his arms. Some people that are connected to the heels of Adam. But they're all one in one person. And as we look at Adam, we don't say that's Adam's heel, and that's Adam's arms, and that's Adam's head. That's Adam. That's man. That's the first man. He's standing alone. Here's a person. We don't see the difference between the head and the foot. Even though Adam, Medrash says, was so large that when his foot darkened the sun's light in the world. I mean, that was before he was shrunk, but nevertheless, it's a heel. And what does this mean? That Adam and Rishon, the idea he was Yachid. Yachid is not one. There's a difference we know between Echad and Yachid. Echad is one, and then there's two. Yachid means alone. We don't say when someone has one child. So we don't say that couple has a single has only one child in Hebrew. We don't say Ben Echad. We say Ben Yachid because there's no other children. Echad means I have one of two. Yachid means this is the only person in the house, only child in the house. So too, Adam Rishon was a Yachid, and in his Yachid is made up of all the components of all the souls. So therefore, when it comes the day after Yom Kippur, after the Jewish people committed the sin of the golden calf, after the 120 days or the last final 80 days or 40 days, that Moshe Rabbeinu achieves tshuva, repentance, and he achieves atonement, and he achieves the highest tshuva ilah, and not just that the Jewish people are forgiven, but kidvarecha, salachti kidvarecha, that they reach the level of that the negative turns into positive. So we're back to square one. We're standing there. So we have to have that yachid. We have to come back to that idea that we're literally adam echad, one person of all the components. And now God says, I want to be amongst you. And that's by the building of the Mishkan. Just like God was with the Jewish with mankind before the sin of the tree of knowledge. Even more because now the Jewish people are about tshuva. You know, with God doesn't look at things like people look at things. A person does something wrong, so even if they're forgiven, and the person says, you know, I forgive you and abuse you, but there's kind of a little bit of apprehension. You know, you can't totally erase what happened. But Hashem, the Rebbe says over here, even though that God say that if you're going to ever sin again, I'll be remembered of the golden calf. But at that moment, the Jewish people achieved atonement, that God wanted to be with the Baal Tshuva more than he wants to be with the Tzaddik. God appreciates the Baal Tshuva more than he appreciates the Tzaddik. Because the Baal Tshuva went through difficulties and was able to overcome them and able to find the path back home. So he says, even more than God wanted to be with the Jewish people, even more than before this sin. So how do you prepare for that? Moshe had to gather to create a single entity, a single goof, so to say, of the Jewish people. And that's why it says Vayekel Moshe. Moshe had to do that. You can't just gather a whole bunch of people in the room and say we're one. There has to be a superpower, so to say. Moshe Rabbeinu to gather the Jewish people and create them into an entity of one. Just like when first man was created. And only through that unification, only then we can make a dira. See, if you have 10 people in, And this person says, and maybe honestly and maybe truthfully, I'm the head. I'm the smart guy in this room. The next person says, okay, I'm the doer of the room. I have the hands. I'm the hands. Next person says, I'm a foot soldier. What do you need me to go? Give me the letter, I'll deliver it. Right? Everyone has their job. But if everyone looks at their jobs like I'm the head and you're the foot, right? So then even if we're trying to achieve something, so we're trying to everyone looks at themselves, I'm separate. Before if everyone has their own tafkid, everyone has their own job. But before we get into the individual tafkidim of each person, the jobs of each person, we have to be able to become a single entity. This is an idea that Rebbe talks about many, many times. In order to start on a program of dir b'tachtona that we're going to bring godliness in the world, you has to first reach a level of unity where we're one entity, and then each one of us with our own qualities are going to participate, and each one have their job to be part of this dir b'tachtonim. First, we have to get away from our differences, not just in differences in, okay, we'll sing together, Havinu Shalom Aleichem, but literally become Yachid, one person, and understand that this is one person, like we say, this is Adam, not Adam's foot and Adam's hand. This is Adam, this is man that's going to create, it's going to bring a dir b'tachton, we're going to create a mishkan that God's going to rest amongst us. And therefore, we're able to have the humility and be productive by helping each other, each one in their tafkid, in their job. So he says, the preparation to do dir b'tachtonim, to do mishkan, has to be v'yakum Moshe. That the Jewish people have to gather as a single entity, just like man was created alone. Only through this unification can we afterwards only then can we take something and do something that's seeming so impossible. How do we make this mundane, physical, challenging world into a place for God? That God is one, the unification of God, to reveal that in all creation. To take the aleph of God, of Alufei Shalaylam, Bezayin Rakim in the seven heavens, in the earth, and four sides of the world, which is what Echad is. And here the Rebbe says this is the message to every Jewish person in their job, in their avodas Hashem. Tafkid shel Yehudi. What is the tafkid? What is the job of because God demands from a person, he or she, and God doesn't expect from anyone more than they can do. Therefore, if there's a demand, means we have the ability. You can make from all your things, your things, your space, to a mishkan for God, a resting place for Hashem. And what does this mean on a day-to-day basis? Avodas hatefillah is the idea of prayer. When you pray, you're connecting your world with godliness. In the beginning, we don't see godliness in the world. When a person brings the awareness of prayer in their life, that opens their eye to see the godliness, brings revealed godliness in the world. Or Rebbe says even more so, not just generally tefillah. Starts from Sukkah de Zimra, we start from the first parts of the morning prayer, that we start with Halus Hashem in Shemaim in ours, we start praising God, recognizing godliness in creation. We recognize that the world came into existence from God's utterance. And we understand through contemplation, through the tefillah, how the world is continuing to be in existence because of God's creating it. Then we recognize the connection to God when we say the blessings for Krishma. There we talk about the worlds of the angels. And afterwards, Krishma, we talk about we love Hashem with our hearts. But with both sides, our evil and our good sides. Our evil, our good inclination, we reach the level of Shmon Esrei, there, like we've said before, what is it that the moment when we stand before Hashem in davening, that's not a moment that we talk about godliness, we talk about our material life. And but what are we saying? We recognize that our most material, mundane things are connected to God. How do we have refuah? God gives us healing. How do we going to have parnasim and baruch Hashanim? God blesses the year. So therefore we come to God and we ask Him because we recognize it's one to us. The godliness and our needs is one thing, and therefore that's the mitzvah. That is the mitzvah of tefillah. When you need something to go to God. What does the Rambam say in the beginning of the laws of tefillah? When a person has needs, you ask it. You ask and plead to God for what you need. Top page 255. So because of everything, starting from ourselves as small individuals, so a person has to start, how do we connect our life through tefillah with the world? The person has to do it. Before we start praying, our soul is just in the beginning of our nose. Therefore, the law is, he quotes the Gemara, a person should not do business or other things before you pray. Because if business is part of your godly service of Hashem, so you have to do it in a way that you're ready to make it as your business, your job, your work as serving Hashem. If you haven't prayed yet, you haven't connected to God yet. How could you implement godliness into your day-to-day life? You haven't prayed yet. By day at tefillah, when a person davens, then your soul becomes part of your body. That's the davening is making yourself as a person a dwelling place for Hashem. And then you have to study Torah. Like it says in Beis HaKnesset, place a medrash. You don't just finish davening and run to work. You sit down for 5 minutes and a little Torah, or a little more than 5 minutes. And not only that, in your time of spending time in the world, is hanig behem minig derech eretz. You behave in a way of derech eretz. Shagam sham tia dir leisbarach, like it says, Kol masach l'shem shemayim, v'chol derechecha de'eyu. Shem shebetur hagdama. The melechas hamishkan husrach liyis achtus shal yisrael aidei zeh shal Vayekel Moshe. So just like going back, how did we start to make a dira b'tachtonim, to make a resting place for Hashem? First, we have to have Vayekel Moshe. In the Gama Chana L'Tfila, he had Eizeh shekoidim atfila tzarich liyis hareini mekabel alei mitzvah asay shal v'rafter recha kamecha. Now we understand. Why do we say hareini mekabel? I accept upon myself the mitzvah of loving another Jew before we daven, because just like in order for us to make a mishkan, Moshe gathers us together and shows that we're a single entity. So too, before we start our own journey on the day to make ourselves into a mishkan through prayer, we have to say, Hareini Mekabel, I accept to be part of the Jewish people. I'm not an individual alone. I'm an individual alone as a single entity of everyone. Like the Baal Shem Tov says, Shariacha, what does it mean, your friend? I'm not talking about someone you grew up with, your best friend. And you have a relationship with them. When a person says, Hareini Mekabel alai mitzvah say, that I love my fellow as myself, we're talking about any Jew, no matter where that person exists. When a person does that, says the Hareini Mekabel in the beginning of davening, it becomes a Vayekel Moshe. We become a single entity. Like then, we don't see any difference. This is what it means, Vayekel Moshe. When a person gets in touch with the spark of Moshe that's within you, then you're able to gather not only all the components of yourself, as all the Jewish people with you. They become a single entity. That a person does in a way that you don't have to force yourself. You want to be part of the Jewish people. The As is called mitzvahs to do what you're supposed to do. Just get rid of the obstacles that sometimes you look at the next person, you don't want to be part of them. So when you just get rid of those outside forces, then you have no problem to become one with all the Jewish people. And this is what happens. Moshe says, Vayekel Moshe told the Jewish people, you got to gather. When the king says it, Man Malka, the Rabbanan, things that seem like a mountain are able to be moved. And it's just to finish it off right here. When a person stands every day and says thinks for a second, how could I do Vayekel? How could I gather myself and be part of the unit, a single unit of all the Jewish people, in order for all of us together to create a dir b'tachtonim? When a person does that, become one with all the Jewish people, then you could truly make a sanctuary in your life, just like it was in the times of Moshe. This is also preparation to the building of the third base of Mikdash that should be revealed with Mashiach speedily in our time. All right, everyone, got to run. Laila Tov, thank you for joining. Take care. Good Shabbos and good Chodesh.